Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about how to maximize your Broadway trip. Yes, I know it's so hard when you come from afar and you have only a few days to spend on Broadway and you want to see so many shows, but you just have limited time. And what do I mean by maximize? I mean by spending the least amount of money on Broadway shows and seeing as many shows as you can. It can mean 2 shows a day, and I did a few 3 shows a day. So I'm going to tell you all about how I made that happen. For whoever doesn't know me, my name is Jordan. I am a huge Broadway enthusiast, but I do not live in the States or in England, so I do not have quick access to Broadway or the West End. I do live in a country where we have some local productions, but it's very different and it's not as Broadway as we want it to be. So when I get to New York or to London, I try to maximize my trip and see as many shows as I can. I've already done 2 trips of 10 shows in 10 days, and I've already done 2 trips of 30 plus shows in 3 weeks. So I know all about how to make the trip as much Broadway as I can, including other things that I do that are Broadway related but are not Broadway shows. Let me share with you my secrets. Before every trip that I go on, I do a mini calendar. It's basically my Broadway calendar. I know, it's such a geek thing to do, but I have to do it. I take an Excel sheet and I put in that Excel all of the shows that I want to see. I map all of the days that the show is running on, special dates that they're running, if it's Monday or Sunday evening, and those special times that are not the regular week times that we have on most shows. And I try to really mark them so I can see them in those off-day shows. Then I go over and if there are specific dates that I need to remember. For example, when I went in March, there were a few shows that didn't open in my first part of my trip, but in the second part they did. So I needed to make that calendar in a way that I can see all the shows that I want to see and just make sure that I don't see shows that I'm less excited about, and then it will take me from shows that I do want to see. That's why I do this spreadsheet. It doesn't mean that I'm going to see all of those shows according to the days that I set them, but it does mean that it gives me a bit of a structure before I head to New York. It means that it's only tentative because I usually don't buy any ticket in advance. I don't buy them ahead of time, even though I come from far away, because I usually have a big amount of shows to see and a lot of time to see them, so I can be more flexible. After I do the Excel spreadsheet, I go and check how I can get the tickets for each one of them. I usually map out what has the lottery tickets and what has rush tickets. And then I mark them for me and just do that so I know when I head to New York that I can really enter those lotteries or go to the rush and just know exactly what is my plan every day. After I've mapped that out, that is my time to map out what is my priority. So I think that's the most important because when you go to Broadway, there's tons of shows and you really need to prioritize what you want to see and what is more important for you to see. Sometimes I like leaving the ones that I'm most excited about to the end of the trip because my trips are really big and have a lot of content in them, so I try to keep those special shows on special days. Let's say if I have a show that I really want to see, I'll try and not see it on a 2-show day because I really want to give it that day and really want to give myself time to enjoy it and really take it in. But sometimes it's not that possible because those shows are really popular. And then if I rush them, it's easier to rush on 2-show day because then I can have better chances of getting the rush tickets. You have a lot of things to consider and to think about, but those are my thoughts. I've done all of the previous research. I have put it all on Excel, and then I head out to New York. What I do then? Well, as I said in my video of how to get cheap tickets, I usually don't buy them in advance and I try to do rush or lotteries. So every day I enter all of the lotteries and then I hope to win some of them. If I win them, then great. That it means I have a show for the day after and I can put it in my calendar and just forget about the day and try to think of other things to do. But if I don't win the lottery, which happened to me a lot in the last trip, I won like 1, which is very rare for me. So I basically rush it. And rushing it's pretty annoying, especially if it's cold outside. But I come in really early and I basically sit and try and get a ticket. I usually plan my day around if the show is really popular, then I try to come earlier. And if it's not, then I can give myself a little more time to sleep and come later on. Usually I do get a ticket because let's say this, if I try to rush a show, and it happened to me a few times, I tried to rush a show and I didn't get a ticket. So I basically go to other theaters that I think that the rushing is going to be easier. So even at, let's say it opens at 10, even at 10:30, there's still going to be tickets. I got a few of those like that. I have to say I got even maybe Happy Ending. I went there at 10:30 and they still had rush tickets, which was great. The seats were horrible, but I moved to the standing room and then it was fine. So that is how I get a ticket for one show, but then sometimes I do a 2-show day. So I try to rush to another theater, and the same, I try to get the theaters that are less popular, like the shows that are still didn't pick up, and then I go to them and try to get the tickets for them. It's usually easier on a 2-show day to get rushing for those less popular shows because it's just a lot of tickets and not all people like them, and it's just easier. I did that with old friends. I went there and they still had really good rush tickets for the matinee, which was fantastic. I also did it for Boop the Musical. I got that. It was before they officially opened. I think it was in the previews. So I also got like pretty good seats. Just check in when the shows are opening. And usually when it's on previews, it's easier to get rush tickets. And sometimes it's harder. It depends on the buzz on the show. So that is how I get the tickets. And I did a whole video on how to get cheap tickets and all that way and my experience with that. But that was basically my day. Every day when I do a Broadway trip, that is all I do. I don't travel in New York. I basically go to specific areas. I know it's kind of lame, but I've been to New York a few times. I've seen all the things that you need to see. And also, usually I do those Broadway trips alone. So I won't go to, I don't know, travel so far to Brooklyn and like to the deep ends of Brooklyn or Coney Island. It's just like not things you do alone. So I try to find those fun things to do. And I've found my perfect routine. I love my routine. And I'm going to do another video of all the things to do on Broadway that are not Broadway. I am just happy to share with you all the things that I've learned throughout the years. But after I did all of that and all of my trips, I know that your main question is, how do you do 3 shows a day? Well, let me share with you. I did it twice. It's not as easy because it really depends on the shows that are running and the times that are running, but I will say it usually involves an off-Broadway show. So we have all of the big Broadway productions, and most of them have the same hours, or let's say it's 30 minutes more or less. So most of them have evening shows that are between 7 to 8. It really depends on the day and the show. It can be 7, 7:30, or 8. We also have the matinees. The matinees are usually on Wednesday and Saturdays and Sundays. And Sunday does not have an evening show and Monday does not have an evening show. This is like the usual calendar that you have. Now, some shows decide to do things differently. What do I mean by differently? Well, their day off can be either Tuesday or just Sunday or just a different day. So they do have an evening show on Mondays. Chicago is one of them. It always has a Monday evening show, and some other shows also do it. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I think it's good for me as a Broadway enthusiast. So I always have something to see every night. Another thing is that some shows have Sunday evenings. So Book of Mormon is one of them. It has an earlier matinee. So usually the matinees are around 2 p.m. On Sundays, it's 3. And Book of Mormon has their matinee on 1:30, and then they have an evening show at 6:30. So you can catch a matinee on Sunday and then quickly eat and then go to a show at 6:30. Those are the usual hours that we have. Now, how do you do 3 shows in one day? Well, of course, it's going to be on a day that has 2 shows. Now, let's take a typical Wednesday, okay? We have a show at 2 p.m. and then we have a show at 8 p.m. Those are the regular times on Broadway. But between 2 p.m., let's say you finish your first show, it usually ends at around 4:30-ish. Let's say you do stage door, then you finish at 5. Sometimes off-Broadway have shows at 5 or 5:30, sometimes even 6. This is really risky. Let's say you find a show at 5. You finish your show at 4:30. You rush and really try to get to your show at 5 or 5:30. Usually the off-Broadway shows are around an hour and a half or 2 hours. They're not that long. They are not as long as a Broadway show. And then you finish at around, let's say 7-ish, sometimes less. And then from 7, you have an hour to get to your evening show, which is at 8. So it is possible, you can do it, but you really need to find those shows that are showing at 5 p.m. Let me give you examples on things that are running now. Let's try. So usually I try to find shows that I'm actually interested on, because shows that I find interesting and shows that I want to see. And then I check when I can push them in and not have them be instead of a Broadway show. And I'm talking about the off-Broadway shows. But if you just want to fill the gap between the shows and you just want to challenge yourself with a 3-show day. So let's see another possibility. Off-Broadway shows, usually in the Broadway.com, they're not shown, all of them. I don't know why not all of them are there. So let's see through Playbill. I think that can be cute. So here we have the off-Broadway listings of Playbill. And you can just choose whatever show you want. There's a lot of big shows. But let's say this, I'm really excited for 11 to midnight. That's what I would have seen if I were you. And then it usually takes you to Ticketmaster. And you can see here some shows that are in odd hours. So we have the 5 p.m. show, which is usually the show that you want to take if you want to do a 3-show day. We can see here that we have 2 5 p.m. shows, which are on a Sunday and on a Friday. Sunday, for sure, you can do a 3-show day because you have some shows that are later on. So let's see this. If you take a Hamilton or whatever show that has a 1 p.m. because a 3 p.m. it's too close, you're not going to make it to the off-Broadway one. But if you have a 1 p.m. and then you have a 7 p.m., you can definitely mishmatch. It's a bit tight, so let's say 7:30 is better. So here's an example. You can do, let's see what else has a 1 p.m. You can do Anne Juliet, and then you can do the off-Broadway one, and then you can do at 8 p.m. or 7:30 the just-in-time one. Whatever is in 7:30, because I don't think you will make it for the 6:30 or the 7, because you can also see the theaters and where the theater is at. Now, I know that the Orpheum Theater, that is where I did my 3-show day. It's pretty far. So you need to take a subway or you need to walk a lot of blocks. It's not that easy to get there than it is to get to a show that is in the Times Square. So the off-Broadway can be really off. But this is an example. Let's check another example because this is fun. I like it. So another 3-show day that you can definitely do, and it's all on Broadway, is on Saturdays. Let's see that. Usually on Saturdays, most of the shows have 2 shows, and they have a matinee and an evening. It's 2 or 8. Sometimes it's a bit earlier. It really depends. And now you're going to look for a show that is on 5 p.m. And I know for sure, just from my knowledge, that we have, it's not a Broadway musical, it's a Broadway play. And we have Oh Mary. Let's see, where is Oh Mary? Here. So Oh Mary and Every Brilliant Thing. So we have 2 plays that are playing at 5 p.m., which is awesome. You can basically take a matinee, whatever show that you want, and an evening, whatever show that you want. And then between them, you can push a play from Broadway. And I know that we're usually going to Broadway for the musicals, but sometimes getting a play is really fun and really, it's just like breaking the day. Let's say this, Oh Mary is around 46th Street, and then it's all in the same area. It's really close, and then it's so easy to get from show to show. It's basically a 5-minute walk for most of them. So that is the best way to experience Broadway. I know, this is crazy. Not all of the people like doing it. They think it's kind of crazy because sometimes when you watch a show, you want to really experience it and you want to think about it and you want to really sink it in. But in my opinion, if you are coming from afar and you don't have any other way, then this is the way to do it. It doesn't mean that the show will mean less or you didn't feel it as much as you can. Because I still believe that all the shows that meant a lot to me and made an impact, those are the shows that I'm going to remember, and it doesn't matter what other shows I've seen in the same day. So let me share with you my 3 shows a day that I've seen. And I actually wanted to do another one, but I didn't manage to get tickets. Let's start with the first, which was a Broadway, off-Broadway, and Broadway. I saw A Beautiful Noise. That was my matinee. I was really surprised. I really enjoyed it. And it ended at around 4:30, and then at 5, I had a show of Rachel Bloom. It was Death Will Catch Me, Death Will Hunt Me, Death Will Find Me, something like that about death. That was in the Orpheum, and it was more downtown. So I was on Broadway, and then I had to go to downtown for the 5 p.m. show. That was pretty crazy. We bolted straight after the show ended on Broadway, And then we took a subway and then we had to walk a lot. It was really crazy, but we managed to get in time and even a few minutes before. So we got time to chill and relax on our seats. And then I saw the show of Rachel Bloom. It was great. It was funny. Too much death for me. It was a really complicated time, but I did enjoy it. She did bring out some special guests, which was fun. And yeah, that was a pretty fun show. And then it ended at around 6:30, I think, and maybe a bit later. And then I had a whole hour to get to a show at 8, and I saw Hadestown, which was pretty fantastic. So it was a packed day. I did get to Hadestown. I saw it at a standing room. So the Neil Diamond one I got from Rush. And then the Hadestown, I actually bought the standing room a few hours before. So between the shows that I walked. That was pretty great, and I managed to do all of them in one day. I did not enjoy Hadestown as much as everybody else liked it. I didn't really connect to it as much, but I feel like today I should see it again and see how much I enjoy that. So that was one of my trips. It was crazy. It was a really, really packed day. I also started it with a friend who got sick in the middle, so she didn't see all of the shows with me, which was a bummer, but I still did it. I felt it was a challenge that I had to do just to prove myself as a Broadway enthusiast to see 3 shows in one day. And I did it. It was fun. So that was my first one. And then on my last trip, I decided to do it again. And I did it a bit different. All of the shows that I've seen were basically off Broadway. And it was all pretty tight. I walked so fast and I was really hurting myself, but I managed to get to all shows. The first one was a show that I was really excited to see. It was called All Nighter. It was an off-Broadway play with a lot of actresses that I really liked. And it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And I was really bummed that I couldn't stay to stage door because that show started at around 5. And then I had another show at 7, which was, I think, like 15 blocks from there. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but I was at 57th Street, and then I needed to get to 42nd Street right on Broadway. It was supposed to be like a 25-minute walk. I think I did it in like 20, maybe 15, maybe less. I don't know. I walked really fast. I even had my glasses still on because I wear glasses to see shows, and I left them on because I really need to bolt and I didn't have time to just put them in my bag. So I walked the whole time with glasses, and they're not meant for walking for me. So that was challenging. No, that was fun. And then I got to that show. It was All the World's a Stage. It was a pretty amazing off-Broadway show. It was a musical. And it was, about a gay teacher coming to a town that does not support the LGBT community. And it was a really good one. It was only 4 actors, which was great. And I really loved the main actor. And I know that he's now, or I'm not sure if it's still running, but he was in Beau the Musical. And he's a really good one. I really want to see him on Broadway because I feel like he is just fantastic. And that show, I actually saw it on first row. And I think I entered like one of the last ones to the theater. So that was risky, but it was fun. When I finished that started at around 7. I finished it at around 9-ish, I think. And then at 9:30, I had the off-Broadway, let's say, performance of 54 Below. So it started at 9:30. I got there on time, and still, from 42nd Street, I needed to go to 54th Street. So I've always wanted to go to 54 Below, and I feel like that is also a thing that every Broadway enthusiast has to do at least once in their lives. And I went to a show there. It was like something like Broadway Sings, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. It's not the best that I've seen. I think it really depends on the people that you have that day. Like, my dream was always going to a show that I know the people. I did not know the actors here, but it didn't mean that they weren't good. They were fabulous. They were really good. And the food was great. I had like a really nice seat, and the staff was awesome. And really, I really enjoyed the vibe. And I have to say, like, I do events that are based on 54 Below. So that for me was really fabulous. And I ended the day at around 11:30, something like that. It was a really packed day with shows. And I'm sure if I really wanted to, I could have added another show as a matinee. But I don't think they had that day. But if you want, it is a possibility to do 4 shows a day. So that is my next challenge, to do 4 shows a day. And I'm not saying that all of them have to be Broadway shows. I'm really, really supporting the off-Broadway shows. Sometimes they're even better than Broadway. My second favorite musical is an off-Broadway show. Those are my experiences. I really recommend doing it if you really like that. I feel like the energy of trying to get from one place to another was really exciting for me and really made my day, just the fact that I accomplished it. And it did not take away from any performance. If I liked a show, I liked it. And it didn't matter that I've seen 2 shows before it or one before and one after. If a show makes an impact on you, it makes an impact. And it doesn't matter how you see it and when you see it and what your day was. Those are my thoughts. Another question that you might have is, how do you choose the orders of the shows that you see? As I said before, usually if there's a show that I know that it's hard to get tickets, I usually do it on a 2-show day. But if I have a way to choose, I try and choose the bigger show and the show that's more interesting to me as the later one, as the evening show. Another thing to consider is if you're doing stage. I love stage dooring. I think that's a great way of connecting to the actors and get a bit more. I always feel like my playbill, if it doesn't have all those signatures, then it's not complete. I don't know, me and my stupid brain. But when I have actors that I really want to see and really want to meet, I try to go to the evening show because they usually don't go out to stage door at matinees. So take that into consideration as well. That is another thing that I think of when I try to balance and try to find what shows I'm seeing. Another tip that I have for you is when you see the shows, then you're thinking, oh, when do you have time to eat? Well, I usually go to things that are nearby. Because I usually go alone, I try to go to the fast food restaurants and the things that are quick and fun and just like not as expensive. So I'm a huge Chipotle fan. Chipotle is my favorite. I would do everything to get a Chipotle between shows. But beside that, you have, all the McDonald's and those type of things. It's not as healthy, but you do have healthy choices. And you basically have a lot of things on Broadway and the 7th Avenue. So you can just find them. And I would always recommend doing something quick and not sitting at a restaurant. Because when you have those quick changes, it's really hard to really sit and wait for a waiter. And I'd rather have those restaurants that you can take your food and just decide when you're leaving. So you pay in advance and then you take it. That is my tip. But if you have time between the matinee and the evening show, you basically have around 2 hours. That's enough time. I also will recommend on the playbill, you also have some coupons for restaurants nearby. I would really recommend doing that. I did that a few times in Applebee's. I know it's not the best, but it was fun and it was a great time and has a great view on 42nd Street. I went there and it had, I think, like a 10 or 15% off if you show tickets for the same day. I think that is perfect when you do a 2-show day or even 3-show day, and then you can fill that void with the restaurant and get a discount. You also have different types of restaurants. I think it changes all the time when they refresh the playbill, but it's worth checking and seeing if there's a restaurant that you like and you want to see. Another tip is restrooms. My favorite thing to do is wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, go to a restroom before the show starts. That is my routine. I would usually get to the theater 20 minutes before if I can. It really depends if it is a packed day. And then I would go to the restroom. I would check out the counter if I want to buy something, like the gift shop and things like that. Like if I want souvenirs, usually I buy the pins. I really like the pins. I started collecting them in my last 2 trips. And then I sit in my place and I make myself ready, which is taking some pictures, looking at the playbill, taking out my glasses and really sharing that. So that is another tip that I have. So go to the restroom before the show starts, because I feel like it's just the best, and then you might not need the restroom in the break. But yeah, that's another tip. Another tip is that if you don't want your playbills to be crushed in your bag, then make sure that you're bringing a good bag that will hold them. Or if you have a bag that is not as stiff and has the place to hold them neatly, then maybe bring like a small binder or something to keep them safe if you care about your playbills. Some people don't really care about them. I do. I love them. And I usually bring a bag that has a place for a laptop, and then it's usually straight, and then it doesn't get crinkled or anything. So that is my way of keeping it safe. Just to summarize how much I paid for my 3-show day. So both of them, all of the shows cost me around $140. If you add 2 meals that were around $15, and a subway ride, it can be around $175 for one day of 3 shows and 2 meals. So that is not that expensive. That is actually pretty good. And thinking about you can pay more than $175 for one show, that is fantastic. I'm really proud that I made that. I did do most of them as standing room or rush or lotteries or something like that. Take that into consideration. It's sometimes a bit more work to get those tickets, but it's worth it for me, especially when you try and see as many as I've seen. What about you? Have you done 3 shows in one day? What are your experiences when you're trying to bulk a few shows at one time? Are you doing those type of Broadway trips? I'm really interested to see how are you coping with coming to New York for a short period of time, or if you are a New Yorker and if you spread the shows that you're seeing throughout months and months, and if so, you are so lucky. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye.